going to say, so I'm as interested to see what y'all have to listen to as I am to tell it. My name is Jimmy Odell Carroll. I'm one of the 6 Rocky Boys that the movie October Sky was about. So we know that's a fact. From now on, it'll just be a magical mystery tour, and whatever comes out, we'll see. I like to tell kids, when you get to go to schools that have they used to call them chalkboards. I don't know what it's called now.
Whiteboard.
A whiteboard? Yeah. Anyway, now that I've got one of these, she swore this would come off. She's right. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's a circle. Here's the plan. There were 4 or 6 became engineers. Roy went into banking, and I got a BS degree from Colorado State in BS. So I was thinking, we've been blinded by brilliance by the high intensity light lady, Michelle. And we got taken on a little old trip with Indy. So we've been blinded by brilliance. So now my job is to baffle you with BS. And I have a degree in BS from Colorado State. Are there any other Colorado State graduates here? I don't get much support out this way. Anyway, structured this isn't. So what I like to tell them is that I'm a tangent speaker, and this little point is a tangent, and then there's a tangent here, and at some point, I will start on subject here, and for God knows what reason, I'll end up down here, and then I'll jump over here. Billy came up with a theory that if he picked somebody in the class, like a teacher or somebody, they could keep track of where I was at before I left the track and ended up down here, and then say, well, where was I going with this? Well, I found out they just go along with me and nobody remembers where I left. So it's always a fun trip. So don't look for a structured speech. It's just the way it's going to be is the way it's going to be. Because we spent 3 years, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. How many have seen the movie October Sky? Hello, chat. Turn to chapter 148. We'll gather at the river. How many own the movie? Have you found out about the special edition? That's a little blue silver strip across the top. Hickam liked to, never got him to release him. He almost had to take him to court. But it's got me and Billy and Roy and Hickam and my dad in Miss Riley's old classroom at Big Creek. And Hickam sent me a copy. It's the only one I've got. But when I got that thing, I'd go home every evening. I'm a State Farm agent. I'd go home from work and I'd pop that thing in, go to special effects, and look at my dad. Now, he only made 6th grade, but he lived to be 93. And he's who I am today, you know. Give your shirt off my back. So it was pretty cool to see my dad on there. He'd never gone to a movie in 47 years, but he decided he better go see his kid. So if you get to see that special edition copy, it's pretty cool. And then Hickam is interviewing Mr. Turner, who was the Nazi of all Nazi dictator high school principals at Big Creek. And I wonder what was wrong with Mr. Turner. He was interviewing him behind his house in Coalwood, and Sonny, also in the special edition, and I'll tell you now, first thing you see when you open this special edition up is Hickam saying, now folks, you got to remember, Odell calls me all these different names. Sometimes it's Homer, sometimes it's Hadley, sometimes it's Hickam. They just come out, you know, the tangent thing pops out. So it's Homer Hadley Hickam Jr. is his name. So when I mention Sonny or Homer or Hickam, that's who I'm talking about, same person. But Mr. Turner, who, you know, you've met people that have this statue in your life and they're probably 12 feet tall, and when you meet them they're like 5 feet tall. Have you ever run into that? Well, that's what happened to Mr. Turner. He was taller than life and controlled our universe till I saw Sonny interviewing him at his house, and I thought he was in a hole. I swear to God, Scout's honor. I thought, what has happened to the man? But we had grown up, and he had grown old, you know. But he apparently was never as tall as my mind's eye had him. So that's part of that special edition that is special to me, and we knew Mr. Turner for quite a few years after that. But after that, he was a normal mortal being. You know, he had real life proportions to him. Instead of in my mind, I thought he was big tall dude. So anyway, now that we've got all the perimeters covered, we'll just let her rip. What I did, I used to, well, I've got a box about this big, that wide, and this high, and so does Billy. We were up at Clarksburg last year, and we were talking. He lives in Bluefield. He said, what are we going to do with all this stuff we've collected? I said, well, when we die, somebody will throw it away and trash and burn it. He said, really? I said, yeah, because it probably won't mean anybody else but us. So if they ever come up to the museum, maybe somebody might want some of it, but it's cool stuff to us, and that's what I do. I used to have a Georgia, everybody know what a Georgia suitcase is?
Paper bag.
Close. Or a box. I used to carry this stuff in a Georgia suitcase, and I went to, my granddaughter here is in the glow-in-the-dark green. I went to her Cherokee Elementary School, and they had a teacher down there, Carol Garrison, who was special. She taught science, and I went for 12 years. A couple of years ago, she retired, and the police chief of Johnson City was there, and I told her, I said, I've been here for about half of Carol's career. She said, you have not? I said, 12 is, how many years did she teach? Like 25 or 30, whatever it was. I said, that's almost half of it. And the police chief backed me up, which was astounding to her that she'd put up with me for 12 years in a row to come talk. But it's a wonderful story. We like the way that it turned out. Up front, it's not all true. Based on a true story means it's based on it. We also learned, I'm talking about us boys, what a memoir means. We thought a book was a book was a book. A memoir is if we quit talking right now and give everybody a piece of paper, it's like in a pottery class. If everybody got a wad of clay and we all made a vessel out of it, no two would even be alike. Our brains don't work that way. So Hickham's brain was working on what he remembered, or thought he remembered, to write a book. Now, I've never written a book. He signed a contract to write 3. October Sky, or Rocket Boys, The Coldwood Way, and Sky of Stone. But he had already written Torpedo Junction. If you like military stories, check out Torpedo Junction. It's about the submarine warfare off the East Coast during World War II. And finally, the USS Roper sank a submarine, a Coast Guard cutter. Hickam found the Captain Lieutenant in Germany and some of the crew, interviewed them. He was also a scuba diver, instructor, a pilot, and he does everything. But he went out and dove down to some of the sunken submarines, and he wanted me to go on the dive boat. But after 10th grade biology, Mr. and Mrs. Hickam invited me to go to Myrtle Beach with them, and Jimmy, his older brother. And we were riding on the front of a 50-foot boat that a guy owned out of Merle's Inlet. And we got outside of land, and I got sick. I threw up on a half an orange all day until Mr. Hickam flicked it out of my way. As soon as we got outside of land, I was good to go. But I didn't want to go on that dive boat with him, and I told him why, and he knew why, because I painted the front of that boat. You call Jimmy Hickam or Sonny right now, it was grape color, because I had a grape pop and some nabs. So I don't do water. I came that close to going in the Navy. I got high scores in electronics for the Air Force and the Navy when I got out of high school in '60. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. I've been in little greasy spots in the ocean, I'm sure. So people who look like water are naked. And I've signed up for a sailing class, but I'm staying inside of land. But I didn't go on his dive boat. He said, there's going to be some mysterious explosions in North Carolina wherever, because people are diving down and taking those 88 millimeter shells off of that boat that are still live. He said, there's just going to be houses go poof, poof. But that's what he did to research that book. So if you like that kind of story, it's magnificent. As soon as I finished it, I wrote back a book, called Hadley and said, good book. His mom, who lived to be 97, Elsie Hickam, she was a trooper. She said, Sonny, honey, if you'd have put some women in that book, they could have made a movie out of it. He said, Mom, why? She said, sex sells everything, Sonny. Wake up. But it's a good military story. So, there you go. So, back to the my Georgia suitcase, I went down to Cherokee Elementary, and Carol Garrison and some of her teachers met me at this clear box. They drew a rocket on it, put Rocket Boy, put my name on it, and all this stuff. Put, what do you call this? Seal meal, whatever you call this. They covered everything that I've got with this so that it wouldn't get worn out. And thank God, because this is what I usually, when I go to schools, or it doesn't matter who I go to, colleges, whatever. Cecil Underwood was the governor when we graduated in 1960. Cecil Underwood was the governor of West Baghdad, Virginia, we're talking. It's 40 years later when the movie came out. Now that's phenomenal to think of 40 years later, and the man becomes the top dog in the state again. But this is him, and he had this picture made, and he had all the schools in West Virginia get a copy of Rocket Boys so that everybody could see what we did with nothing, that possibly in today's world people could do something with something. I mean, it's a different world. We truly had an adventure. We were allowed to. Now mind you, it was illegal when we did this. It's still illegal, but we're not talking about that. Statute of limitations may never run out, but any undercover policeman in here or whatever. But that was the truth of it. We went back to Myrtle Beach the second year. Hickam and I went with his parents, you know. We took some rockets, and there's a big area down there that's probably 5,000 houses on it now. But we would drive out in his dad's Buick, set these things up on something to shoot them off into the ocean, light them as quick as we could, get in the car, and drive like whiz back to get away from where they could find us, you know, because it's illegal down there too. You know, he's wanting to be an interstate rocket person. I joined the Air Force and came home on leave in December of '63, and when I left to go back, stopped to see Hadley, and he gave me the LP of Camelot. We had played it a million times, but he insisted that I take it with me, which the guys in the barracks in Germany wish that hadn't gotten it. And he also gave me a metal rocket about this long to put it in my AWOL bag. Yeah. Blue Pan Am out of New York City. Now think of it. Where have we came from? We went from an adventure and me carrying a metal rocket. Internet, that's what he wanted to be. Let's take a rocket to Germany, we'll be an international rocket club. So I carried the rocket with me. No problem, everybody carries a rocket with them apparently. So this rocket went with me, and then he said, now I'll send you the good stuff. And he went to school at VPI, which they now call Virginia Tech. Well, there's a little box showed up in the mail, and I kept going down with my buddies. They'd get their mail, and I'd look in there. Finally, after a couple of weeks, I said, any mail for Carol? And the German guy said, oh yeah, it's been there for weeks. Get this out of here. Well, I figured they'd lock me up then, you know. I mean, I stayed in fear, because it's illegal. We're back to that word again. So I got the box and left the post office, and nobody came after me. So guess what? We got a rocket, and we got rocket fuel. So we decided we're going to load this and fire it. So we found a sand pit off the end of the base. This is Spangdahlem, Germany. Any German policemen here? And we had F-105s, this hot new sled for the Cold War. It was a fighter bomber. And we took this metal rocket and fired it out of this sand pit somewhere off the end of the base. And none of us can remember where we've slept since then. We can't remember who helped me. But the next day, or whenever the next issue of the 49th TAC Fighter Wing little gossip column came out, it had in there, cease and desist, your hind ends of grass and we're the lawnmower. Because they picked that metal up on the radar, see? So, what to do with all this rocket fuel? We found that linoleum was a big deal. They came on a tube about this big of hard cardboard. A tennis ball would fit it perfect. We borrowed a rubber mallet from a flight line, drove it in there, drilled a fire hole, and we poured some rocket fuel. That's enough. Now throw some more. And our barracks were long. God, they were long. And the ceilings were 12 feet high or something. Those Germans that had them or something. And John Olson always wanted, it's fired it like a bazooka. Put the tennis ball in there, load it with a broom handle, and then holler fire in the hole, and all the doors closed, and he'd touch it off, and that tennis ball would ricochet forever. We hold the land speed record for tennis balls in Germany. We also have been puzzled the maintenance people because these lights, I mean, nobody could reach them. You know, you had to have a big ladder to get them. They kept getting broken, you know. So that's the beginning and the end of, and that is the end of all the rockets we ever did. People always ask me, do we still do rockets? No. When Columbine happened, we were all together, and Quentin says, boys, from now on, we're never going to mention how to build a rocket, what we even thought about using for fuel. Tell them they've got a science teacher and resources in the library to go figure it out themselves. We're not spilling our guts about anything anymore, because all we were building were pipe bombs till we figured this thing out. Like I said, it took 3 years. They launched Sputnik in '57. We had graduated from 9th grade in Coalwood, so 5 of us grew up in a wad there in Coalwood, and we met Quentin when we went to school at Big Creek. So at that point, we had been at Big Creek for, what, a month or something, whenever school started back then. And this was 1st of October. So then Hickam gets the bright idea we're going to build a nuclear submarine. But we decided, no, we'll build a rocket. We didn't know what we were doing. You know, it just wasn't plausible. But like the movie showed, they're loading that, it's a plastic airplane fuselage, if you noticed in the movie. It's a plastic fuselage packed with, what did he say, the black powder of 100 cherry bombs or something. And I was thinking, come over here. And how high is it? Roy and I were there, I think. And Odell says, how high is it going to go? And he says, oh, 3 or 4 miles. And the Odell kid goes. And that's when the fence blew up. So we were good at blowing up. So let me go back and start with 6 of us. They showed 4 in the movie. One they didn't name at all was Billy Rhodes. He and I joined the Air Force right out of high school. He got out and went to Western University, became an electrical engineer, and worked in the coal mining industry. And the fool would go to wherever this coal mines were and go to the face where all the danger's at. But what they made was a fail-safe program to keep miners from getting electrocuted, this 4 zillion volts and amps that they were using to run their equipment. So he had to go where it was being used, where it was supposed to. But he said that the miners, if they had a problem, instead of reporting it, they would jerry-rig it, or whatever the problem was. They were good enough to keep the machinery going and work around the problem. He said that's the biggest headache, was the miners would go around their safety devices just so they keep production going. And speaking of production, people always ask, was Mr. Hickam as mean and bad as he was depicted in the movie? No. Mr. Hickam was in charge of production of the coal. He had to be strict. That was his job. There was a superintendent, and then there's Mr. Hickam, the mine boss. His job was to keep the coal coming out. No matter what the problem was, keep the coal up. My first cousin, Jackie, went up to pick his dad up when Jackie was 16 or whatever he was driving. He said he got up there, and Mr. Hickam was calling Uncle Robert every name known to man. Jackie said if he had a gun, he'd have shot Mr. Hickam on the spot for cussing his dad. But what it was is like the line in the Amadeus movie when Salieri, when Mozart's wife comes back and he's helping her, and she says, "And why are you here?" He says, "Because I was at hand." I like that line. Because I was at hand. So Mr. Hickam was at hand for or Uncle Robert was at hand for Mr. Hickam to chew him out. He was at hand. He got the whole load. You know, it's like the farmer feeding his cattle and only one shows up. Instead of throwing the whole load off, you just give him what's needed. But Mr. Hickam was tough because he had to be. he wasn't so tough on us, but he made a good storyline. You got to remember, this was a Hollywood production, and I tell people they want to sell tickets and popcorn. So they made some dramatic moments in the movie that weren't based on true stories, based on Hollywood scriptwriters. The thing that irritated Homer Hadley Hickam Jr. the most was he gave him his screenwriting rights, and they named his father John Hickam. In the soft coal industry, Homer Hickam was the best air ventilation person that had ever been in mines. As Mrs. Hickam said, if he'd had a degree, which astounded he didn't, she said if he'd had a degree, he would own this company. But they made him John Hickam, and Sonny became Homer. It was hard for us to get that distinction because he was never called Homer growing up. He was Sonny. I call him Hadley just because. But Homer was Homer. So that really irritated. Sonny said if he ever has another book go to a movie, he's learned not to give up the screen rights because they can write in what they want, and that's what they did. But that's what he learned. So all y'all getting ready to write books, when he goes to the film, keep track of it, keep hold of it. So that's the most irritating thing about it to him that there was. Billy went to Western University and worked doing that coal mining stuff, and he's retired now. He would have been up here. Joe called and asked if Roy and I and Billy would come. I called Quentin, and he's in Amarillo. He's dried out like a lizard. He said the heat's killed him. He said, tell everybody I'm never coming back to West Virginia. I sold my motor home. All I do is sit around and read my books. Now, Quentin was the smartest one of all of us. Doris Ploss, who was Dorothy Plunk in the movie, became the valedictorian because she took underwater basket weaving or something to point him out. But we all knew it was Quentin. So I knew not to ask Quentin what books he was reading. I said, well, enjoy your reading, you know. The other thing that I'll do is this thing, when I'm in schools, there'll be an auditorium, and I'll get way back, and I'll ask them if they can read it, and I'll walk toward them to where they can see that it says, get caught reading. Now, guess what the percentages are of kids that like to read? Well, I say love to read. It's astounding. It's appalling. It is a pandemic. It's an epidemic. They don't read. And that, to me, is, of course, growing up in Coalwood, I had no reading material at home. When I got to the 7th, we went first through 6th grades downstairs, and then we went up 7th, 8th, and 9th. But when we got to 7th grade, this library up there was free. I was reading books like a madman, and I fell in love with reading, and I still love reading. Put my eyes out, but give me break, teach me Braille, do something. But reading is just the center of it should be the center of everybody's being. I'm talking to the choir here. It's the people who don't read that need, and the teachers love me batting them over the head because I'll rant and rail about reading, and then at some point it dawns on me that I'm supposed to be talking about the movie. But then the key to that is, remember when Miss Riley got him a book on the rockets? We had to read a book. So reading is key, and it's still key. It's just the young kids are playing tiddlywinks with this stuff and watching TV. The other thing I do is tell them, go home, tell your parents throw all the TVs out of the house. I don't get TV service at my farmhouse. I could if I wanted it, but I don't. I don't want it. I've got a plasma thing that my son had me buy with a Blu-ray thing, and I buy DVDs and stuff. And in fact, I'm going to send one to the Intensity Light Laser lady. She don't know it, but I'm going to mail her a copy of a Sean Carroll who does Dark Matter, Dark Energy. And I mentioned it to her the other night. She said she'd heard of him, so I made me a note. If I sleep, I'll forget it, so I made me a note. And I'm going to have my brother burn a copy and mail it. Is she in here?
Yes, I am.
I made that all up. The teaching company has a $3,000 fine per line if you copy it. So, disclaimer, I just made that up. I didn't know she was in here. But anyway, y'all smart people will like this. This guy, and he's no kin to me. He's a Carroll, but I don't know what branch. But this dark matter, dark energy, and she's talking about that sometime today. What time are you doing that? 3:15. We're gonna get to take another trip with her. Is she cool?
2:15. It's right after yours.
Cool well, she's just cool beans, you know. I mean, smart, and you. What I told my granddaughter was she's so smart, but she's so common. Like, I'm not talking about you. She can talk to common people, like what, you know. That's what amazed me from when I saw her 5 or 6 years ago. In fact, I introduced her to my granddaughter, who's now grown up to 18, the other night. I said, my 2 granddaughters got home and told my daughter, I said, Mom, we met the smartest woman on the planet. Is that true? Yeah, amen. So that's what we get out of these things. We get to interact with, and we've had the privilege of meeting some incredible people, and God knows who all Hickham's met. Hickam don't go around corners for less than $25,000, so good luck with that. But when you've written as many books as he has, you can charge what you want to charge. You know, we were talking about Alex Filipinko. Does anybody know about the teaching company?
Yep.
Yes.
Isn't that incredible?
Yes.
I was of course I get excited about everything anyway, but I even got my medical doctor into the program. I called him and I said, send Wes Eastridge a sale book. Don't send him a regular, send him a sale. We want to get him hooked. And then my chiropractor, Joseph Motto, I did the same thing to him. And they're hooked. And now I'm trading things. But I took Alex Filipinko's Understanding the Universe, which I ordered because I've been up here listening to all y'all talk about all this stuff. And then I also took him, he like to never got through it because it's like 46-hour lectures. And then the Sean Carroll is about that long as well. And I'd go get an adjustment, and he'd say, Carol, I'm going to kill you. I ain't never getting through this dark matter, dark energy. I said, well, just, it's cool to listen to them, isn't it? He said, I begin to think it's not. But they're just, they've got a subject matter for everything. And I don't even sell them. I'm a State Farm agent, so if you need insurance, come see me. But this teaching company is cool beans. They've got stuff that you could see, and you can get on DVD, and that's like somebody there with you. I just had one on English literature. This big, tall, lanky British guy who taught at King's College University in London, and he's so cool. He's British, but he's been over here apparently a while. But he's still got that little twang to it, you know, that British stuff. But he talks, and they talked about these people, these Greek gods and these Roman people, and he talks about all these writers of English literature like he's kin to them, like they live around the corner. You know, like some people talk about increase in intensity of light. They live with it, you know. So this stuff is, I'm here to talk about the movie. Tangent. So, if you got any kids or grandkids, smack them on the head, give them a book. I don't care what it is. I don't care what it is if they will start reading. This young lady has bought one for a baby that's this big and one for that's this big. But that's how it starts. So that's, and back to the Georgia suitcase. I got stuff here that I can pass out, and and the thing that I went to East Tennessee State. Professor asked me to come and talk to all these teachers. They did the summer program, and I'd pull this stuff out of that Georgia suitcase before Carol and them got me into a plastic thing. And after I got through, they said, "What a fantastic way to make a presentation." I said, "Well, what was that?" They said, "Well, everything you pulled out of there had a story." I said, "Well, it does." They said, "Well, that's a good way. That's perfect." But anyway, I got invited over to Mountain Empire Community College, and if you can see this, there's a picture of me with a black mock turtleneck on, and a chain is this Irish 5,000-year-old warrior. He's my protector. Not only does he know jitsu, but he carries heat. The Irish were cool back then. But anyway, the guy calls me from Wise, Virginia, and asks me some questions, and I'm rattling on like now. So I said, "Well, you writing all this down?" And I get it. Well, it came out in the paper, and he said, "Do you have a picture?" And I said, "Well, there's one in my office. Hal Doka in Knoxville, Tennessee had just gotten a new digital camera, whenever that was. And, well, this is 18 years old, so whenever. So he had me come out on the back porch and said, "Jimmy, let me take a picture, first picture." So it was this one, so he had Miranda make him a copy and send it to him. Well, as soon as it hit the paper, and I sent copies up to all my Air Force buddies everywhere, And they said, Carol, what the hell kind of religious sect are you starting now? So I just call it my Father Odell picture, which works well. The only thing was, in fact, I was looking for that reporter when we got to the college, but he wasn't there. I was going to tell him that between my fingers, where I had my hands, was this thing, was what I should have showed, and I'd have had some excuse instead of starting a religious order. So, I'm with brown monks. Sound like a rock and roll. So, here's a picture of all of us. Got Mrs. Hickam in the middle. And I can put this out and y'all look at it. Mrs. Hickam, Jimmy, who is Sonny's brother. This is Sonny, Homer Hadley Hickam Jr. This is Linda, Homer's wife. This is Quentin, the geek, and his wife, Janice, he lives in Amarillo. This is Roy Lee Cook, the love master of Big Creek. The child hadn't grown over that yet. I was just talking to him the other day, and guess what the topic was? Anyway, this is his wife, Betty, and they live in Columbia. Actually, they live in Irmo. So when I'm with him, I tell people he actually lives in Enema, South Carolina. Which somehow gets him riled. And then this is Billy Rose, and his wife's name is Rose. So naturally, since I've been here 35 years, I call her Petunia. So here a while back, I said, how many other people call you Petunia? She said, one person on the face of the earth calls me Petunia. I said, well, let's go with gardenia or gladioli. But she said, leave it where it's at. It's good, Petunia. So that's Rose, and this is Mary Jane, who is Jimmy's wife. So if y'all want to pass that around and look at it, you can see it in real life. I didn't even have hair then, so that's where it goes. People do ask me what I like about the movie. I said, well, at the end it shows the old 8mm things. You know, you wound it up, you had 25 feet, and then you turned it over and wound it 25 feet. In it, I had hair. I said, that's one of my shining moments. And the other part of the movie is, at the end, it shows one of our real rockets going up down at the coal camp, whispering smoke up. So that, of course, I cry every time I see a movie. And I get to see a movie a lot because Wood Badge, which is Boy Scout. Does anybody here know about Wood Badge or Boy Scouts? Well, Wood Badge is leadership training for Boy Scouts, and they base their syllabus on the ideas in October Sky since 2000. I didn't know that until I went to Fort Smith. Buddy taught me to come out there and came back in Hickam, and Linda stopped by Possum Creek, and I was telling him I found that. He said, oh, they've been doing that since 2000. So I didn't know it, but he knew it. But they base what we did to teach leadership training. I noticed when I went to Rogersville, April 7th, I think it was, this year, they have them like every other year. In the past, they would show the movie and then have me talk. Now mind you, these are men and women who have been away from Mama and Papa for 2 or 3 days at a time at the camp, learn how to be scout leaders. So this year, somebody got smart. They had me talk before they showed the movie, had time constraint, and then after it was over, the leader picked out the points that they'd been teaching them how to build leadership and ideas in the movie, which is way cool because they could get out of Dodge and go home. It's just me sitting there. Believe it, I could talk to Mark for them. So that worked out good. So I was impressed with the way they changed the structure of that. So, this is, remember Hickam won a gold medal for the Rocket Boys Club. We went to Akron, Ohio 15 years ago for the National Gallery of Young Inventors for America's Young Inventors. So they all decided, since Hadley got one, that we need one, and this is an honorary inductee, Jimmy Odell Carroll. So they gave us all one, which is kind of cool. And then they gave Hickam his like this at a Marshall function once. So that was kind of cool, you know, that they were thinking about us. So these teachers were having science kids come up with out-of-the-box solutions to problems, and these kids were getting patents on stuff that the rest of us hadn't thought of. So their brains are working. So the teachers, you know, that I tell kids, I said, wouldn't it be great if everybody got A's, everybody sucked up and was a teacher's pet, and nobody complained about the teachers, and everybody took the teacher an apple a day. They'd start their own little fruit stand, but everybody would be cool, you know, because instead of talking about your teacher and saying you don't like her because of this or that, that's what teachers do. They have dedicated their lives to it. That's what the Miss Riley Teacher of the Year Award is about. it was a national program, and $10,000 given to somebody, and they would weed it down and pick a winner. And then Knights of Columbus or somebody ran out of money. So Roy Lee Cook started the Prodigy Foundation and came up with money and picked, he said, we got enough deserving teachers in West Virginia. So they picked a teacher in West Virginia and give them $5,000. But honey, I'm telling you, these people who have won will bring you to your knees. You talk about overcoming handicaps. Some of these people, the one that's burned a hole in my brain, I think she's from Idaho. She had cancer in her jaw, and they had taken all this out. They had rebuilt her jaw somehow. They had grafted, they had done everything, and it wasn't working. She said, forget it, leave it the way it's going to be, but she still kept teaching. Now when you saw this woman, at first you saw this hole in her head where the cancer had ate it out, but from then on, all you saw was that she wanted to teach. You never saw the handicap that the rest of the world saw. Now that's pretty damn powerful. Now if that don't make you humble, makes me get tears in my eyes just think about it. That's 10 years ago, I'm sure. So that's the kind of thing that this Miss Riley is holding up based on the fact that she got a disease and died. And Billy was going to Western University when she was working on her master's in mathematics or physics, I don't know what it was. But Billy can make you cry. He did that to us once. We decided we didn't want to follow Billy talking, because I had to do that first time he put this on. Because he's talking about her, how she got to classes and the pain she was in. But here she was still making sure she was getting to be a better teacher for her kids. Now think about it. The rest of us got aches and pains and stuff, but these people, they are totally dedicated to their students. And we got to keep that in mind. And the teachers dedicate their lives to them. So that's what Miss Riley Teacher of the Year Award is about. So if you know of anybody in West Bygod, Virginia that's deserving, let me know, or let Roy Lee Cook and Enema, South Carolina know. You don't see him come around, do you? So that's what we try to do, is go to schools to motivate kids, whatever means we've got. I was talking to somebody the other day, I meant to bring it. We went to Ohio to a college, and they took us down to a Southern University and we talked, and then we went back, and that night we were going to talk to the main campus, and they were going to video it and spew it out all over the state to the schools and stuff. So we were driving back, and one of the four who became an engineer would be Billy Rose, said, now, we need to do this the exact way we did today. We need to do the same thing tonight. And I said, why's that? He said, well, we want them to know that we know what we're talking about. He said, you did right. He said, you're funny, Jimmy. I said, what did I say? I said, well, write it down. I said, why do we need to do that? I said, we lived it. But the four engineers, they would be up here with, okay, I've covered that. Next, we're going to cover building the blockhouse. I mean, that's why you don't throw darts. I bet there's about, how many engineers in here? Well, that's not so many. Y'all form a barrier and I'll run. But that's the way you are, isn't it? You do things by the number. It's got to be that way. You don't do none of this off the wall talking like this. It drives Billy crazy. Billy and Roy and I were in Clarksburg last year, year before sometime, and we go out to school, and they put us all together. Usually they scatter two of us out here and there. And we were on the stage and talking this really old school, really cool wood and stuff. And so I get out there and I have this habit of saying something's true. It's true, which is the Crown has made it clear. And then I started, the climate must be perfect all the year. A law was made a moon ago here. July and August cannot be too hot. By order, summer lingers through September. Now I'm sparing you the singing part. And then I asked the whole entire school, and Billy and Roy looked at me. They know I'm crazy, but I certified it. I said, nobody here knows that the next word is Camelot? I told you about the long play album, didn't I? See, it comes back to haunt you all your life. Anybody listen to the words in Camelot or the songs? Julie Andrews and Richard Burton, Roddy McDowell, who's the guy from Canada played Lancelot?
Robert Goulet.
Robert Goulet. I'm telling you, it's magnificent. Of course, I grew up with this thing of learning lyrics to songs, so you can overlook me. But those songs in that thing, so you get in the habit of saying it's true, it's true. My girlfriend says, don't say that, because I want to keep going. But there's another tangent. So, we are, here's some things they made back when this hit the press in Coalwood. They had there's a little filling station there, and beside it there's a building or something. So they put all this stuff that people were making in it to sell for souvenirs, and somebody came up with a hat, what's it say? Home of the Rocket Boys, Coalwood, West Virginia, and Home of the Rocket Boys, Coalwood, West Virginia. And I've even got Billy Rose's signature on this one, and he said, yeah, I gave it to you. So they don't make those anymore. It's no longer October Sky Day in Coalwood. No, we don't know. They had to move it to Beckley, West Virginia last year because my dad died 2 years ago at 93. Bill Bolt and Reba are 95 now. The two youngsters doing the thing was Jim and Carol DeHaven. They're 75. Well, they're 77 now. So they didn't have any support, so they had to send out a Dear John letter. So Hickam went and met with them in Beckley, and they decided they could do something, and they dovetailed us in with Chili Festival. Any of you go to the Chili Festival in Beckley? It's cool beans. It's hot stuff. But they put us out where the coal mine exhibition is. They have nice facilities. They have a stage and music. They got the big coal mining thing. They moved that. They built a new one that looked like a coal miner, not like a company store. They reconstructed a superintendent's house. They got a two-room school. They've got a miner's little, or a bachelor's little pad thing there, about 20 feet square. So it's really cool, and it kind of looks like it was back when, you know. So if you get a chance, we see Hickam at the October Sky Day, and he'll be in Beckley the first weekend of October. So there's a plug for that. So we have fun getting together. As you can tell, well, once at Coalwood 15 years ago, Hickam, we were on a stage, and he says, Odell, when are you going to grow up? I said, Hadley, it's mandatory that you get old. It's not mandatory that you grow up. I'm a Curious George. I hope to. I mean, that's what it's about. You know, be a sponge. That's what I tell kids. Don't quit trying to learn something. Now, my problem is I put it in here, but it's hitting them buttons and getting it to come back out on time. It gets to be a problem, you know. But it's cool to still throw it in there, you know. So that's what we're about. We like going talking to kids or colleges or what, it doesn't matter. As long as we can tell them this story that they like, that gets them excited, and mention reading every now and then, and stuff like that, and then we had an adventure, and then we had a time of our lives, and we lived through it. The first rocket that we shot in real life was up behind the coal mines, and there's a kink in the road, and it went up the hill toward the water tower that's up here. Well, when we lit it, there was this beech nut tree, this big around, that Quentin runs, the rockets, he runs and gets behind this beech nut tree. Thank you, Lord. At the last possible moment, Quentin gets up and runs and jumps over the coal pile, kind of like in the movie where they show that rocket hitting and blowing up, and they'd all jumped across the slack. That rocket, I'm telling you, didn't go up. It blew up, and there was a piece of shrapnel the size of my hand right where Quentin had been beside that beech nut tree. I guess how many rockets would have fired after that? Yeah. That would have been then that. Not only would it have been illegal, we'd have been doing bad stuff to people. So the Lord loved us to start with. He still loves us. Still loves me, because I had a heart attack in Montana in '93. So I'm at the foot of the cross, Red. And my dad's nickname was Red Carroll. Any of you ever go to Coalwood and meet Dad? He was the unofficial tour guide for the Rocket Boys because he was born and raised in Coalwood. He worked on the tipple. He got black lung from that, but he got laid off and was unemployed for a year and a half. And he said, boxes of groceries just show up at the back of the house. But then somebody loved him and filled out a contract, and he became the garbage man for Coalwood and Coretta, for the houses, and for Olga Coal Company. But he was honest to a fault, you know. So somebody liked him, and they wanted him to do that. So that's how we finished having our lives led. So, and he liked dahlias. And he liked to show them off. So, we would take bouquets of dahlias to Coalwood Junior High School to our teachers, sucking up. Made the teachers happy, made us happy that they were happy, made Red happy that people knew about his dahlias. So it was a win-win, you know. So we all still try to raise dahlias for Dad's sake. So the first day that we met Quentin in Big Creek, we had Biz Ed, Coach Merrill Gaynor. Then we had Jimmy Jones, who was just a brand new teacher for history. And then we went upstairs to Coach Mams for biology. Well, they had these, I guess they still got them, those tables and those holes in them to do experiments with. And they were 3 or 4 rows from the classroom. Well, Mr. Turner, or Mr. Mams' teacher's desk was here. Here was this one. Doris Bloss, a.k.a. Dorothy Plunk, in the movie. Hickam said, you know why I just didn't leave her name Dorothy Bloss. She was sitting here, and Quentin was sitting here. There was a fight. Mr. Mams says, what's the problem? Quentin says, I need this side of the table. Well, Bloss wasn't giving it up because that put her closer to the teacher. The teacher's pet working here already, first day. So finally he says, what's the problem? He says, well, I need over there because I'm left-handed. I need over there so I can write. So he says, well, that's not a problem. There's an empty one back there in the back. Again, thank you, Lord. Quentin has to move back, and he's on the left side of me. I'm sitting over here. I'm telling you, in Coalwood, they didn't have those Latin words for all that biology stuff. When Quentin came to Big Creek, he had already figured out the way to get out of a coal camp. Now, we're talking, anybody here raised in a coal camp? Well, I'll tell you what, you don't want to. But looking back, it's the best place we could have been raised. But Quentin could have taught biology. When he got to Big Creek, he knew the book. He may have known everything else that we were studying. But when Mams put him back there beside me, I was getting a D the first, what did you get, 9 weeks? Well, then Quentin started thumbing. Nobody had cars, so Quentin would thumb from Bartley over to Coalwood, and we'd get me stuff out of the creeks and hollers and whatever. And he was talking the talk. Believe it or not, I ended up with a B by osmosis, I think. By having lived he was walking the walk and talking the talk. So I tell kids, if you got a smart friend, don't be bad-mouthing them. Suck up to them. But like in the movie, Quentin said, I don't let anybody copy my homework. Well, you'd have to copy your homework if you're talking the talk and I'm learning the words, you know. That's the way it works. So if you got a, well, maybe nobody's smarter than you, but if you do, just buddy up to them. Make this thing work together. That's teamwork, you know. So that's my first experience with Quentin, and then of course he ended up, we were friends. That's the thing about this movie that Mrs. Hickam liked, was her son Jimmy, who was a prima donna, and Sonny, who was skinny and bow-legged like me. She said the best part of the movie was it made friends of her 2 sons. I mean, we're talking driving a fork through each other's hands in the kitchen, sons, you know. So that was her reward of this movie, was it made friends of her sons, because they finally realized they could tolerate each other. So, y'all run out of time, so let me get on fast track. Billy's in Bluefield. Quentin's in Amarillo. He was a chemical engineer for Marshall. Went out in the desert and became a lizard. Eats at Barneyville. Sherman Sears, who died 35 years ago, we're now 71. We graduated in 60. Sherman went to West Virginia Tech at Montgomery, West Virginia, in the electronics and computer stuff. He was smart. And he died on us. Hickam went to VPI and ROTC. He did that, got his commission, went to Vietnam. In fact, that dude came back and worked for Redstone, and then he got on with NASA, and he worked for NASA forever. He wanted to go up in the, what was that, Skylab or something, that bus they sent him, but they wouldn't send him. If he hadn't had bad eyes, he'd probably done the national, he'd probably done it all. But he was big medicine on the ground. He taught astronauts in the buoyancy thing. He went to Russia to teach them. He went to Japan to teach them. He was always, you know, so he got to do what the rest of us wish we could do, but he got to go down the path. And he still lives in Huntsville. I've got his phone number, and I'd call him and he'd answer it, but I don't bug him because he's busy. In the movie, when it showed the kids on the creek bank fighting, and Hadley says, okay, if y'all want to be coal miners, go ahead. I don't care. You be like Odell's dad, get your head cut off a piece of slate. And the Odell kid and Hadley get in a fight. As soon as the movie came out, Sonny called Dad and said, Red, don't believe that movie. We know you're not dead. You're the only living father of the Rocket Boys that we got, and we love you. So there's some of the Hollywood dramatic part that they do. So, that leaves Roy went to, the Love Master Big Creek went to Concord. Roy thought you could take beer and be in the women's dorms. We had a meeting there 10 to 15 years ago sometime, and the president of the company said, yeah, that's true, and he's still banned from Boston. Roy, you cannot come to Concord. You're still on the books. But he went to Maryland, University of Maryland, became a banker and retired from that. Now he's doing good stuff in Charleston, you know. And then I went to the Air Force, ended up going to University of Maryland classes at night in Germany and Spangdahlem. Got out and then went to, they passed the GI Bill, and went to Colorado State University and got out of there June the 10th of '69. So there's another bump. I tell kids, that took 9 years. Now most people become a doctor in that time, but I was just getting my BS and BS. Don't let bumps in the road get a hold of you. You can get a job, you can get pregnant, you can be unemployed, you can do whatever. But our teachers built a fire in our gut, that's what I've always said, to get an education. They knew they didn't want us to be coal miners either. In the 9th grade, the boys got to take a field trip and go down 700, 900 feet in the main shaft to the mines. Guess what that was about? See where you're going to be working? Come on, boys. Somebody dug up a picture of that bunch of idiots. If I got an excuse from Red Mule, I swallowed it, threw it away. I didn't want to go in that coal mines. But somebody found a picture of all of them. Guess what color they were wearing to go in the coal mines? Predominantly white. You know, they had to be trained to be coal miners because they weren't smart enough to wear something besides white in the coal mines. So but that's what it was for. They kept doing those field trips until Jim DeHaven told me here a year or two ago. They were taking college kids and stuff on these field trips. Somebody got hurt. They were into that program, but they did that forever. Take these 9th graders down there. If you're not smart enough to want to finish school, guess what? We got a job for you. That's what that was all about, in my opinion. So, then I got out of Colorado State University in '69. I came back here trying to find a job. Nobody had a job. I went back and got on with State Farm, and I've been with them 43 years. The first of March next year will be 44 years. So that's all 6 of us, what we've done, what we've been doing. I guess Hickham's still writing books. We enjoyed the fact that it got us back together as friends. So I'm going to close this Georgia suitcase because y'all are running out of time. You've got 9 minutes to ask questions. Yes?
Got one question. How long did Miss Riley live until after you graduated?
I think it's 10 years.
Oh, it was that long? Okay.
Yes?
Did that episode where the rocket caused a fire really happen, or is that just a movie?
Remember that word, memoir? Hickam remembered my sister's father-in-law, son, somehow got a hold of some phosphorus rockets that you hit and they go up and they have a parachute. Military people use it to light up.
Right.
Somehow
it was
she roared.
Signal flare.
Well, somehow we got a hold of them, and we and one shot off down at Frog Level and went over on the mountain. Now the coal company owns everything. 4 inches is your house, and if they want your house, you're out there. We caught the mountain on fire. I remember Irvin Rohr, Janet's father-in-law, said, and it's night. He said he heard this grizzly bear or steam locomotive or something coming up that mountain. It was my brother Donnie. Honey, we had to get this thing put out because we were all going to jail. It was company property we were burning. So I'm sure that Hickam remembered us setting the mountain on fire. Now, the thing about the flare, we really did get called to the principal's office. The state police were there. And they had all of us down in Mr. Turner's office, and he wanted to skin us. They pulled out this thing about this long, about that big around, and it was magnificent. It had to be made by the government, but it had little spring-loaded compartments in it. They were, I don't know if they were based on the altitude, or I don't have a clue, but they had little containers in there that helped. And back then they were throwing Tide in the air, Ajax, paper bounces, nobody knew anything, so they were trying everything. So my theory was that they were dispersing something in the clouds to bounce waves off of. Well, we tried to tell them that it was ours. Now this was 8 miles from where we're at, so they didn't know what we were doing. It was illegal, but we saw this thing and we were all over them state police and said, yeah, that's ours, we want it back. We didn't get it back. But when I don't know if it's in the book or what the deal is, but I was at the site in Oak Ridge where they set up this war camp to do this movie. And they were driving all this stuff, and I said, boys, that isn't the way it was at all. It wasn't a flare. It was this thing that fell out of the sky, had compartments, and they were throwing stuff in the air. Well, screenwriters like the idea of a flare, and that's what they put. And it somehow ended up being a fire over Welch, which ended up being a flare from the airport instead of us. But it sounded good, you know. So a lot of it sounds good, but it's not totally true. Question. Not my question, your question. Anybody got a question? Yes?
Were you happy the way you were portrayed in the movie?
Might as well.
Can't do a damn thing about it.
Can't do nothing. Now, Hickam has a musical, Rocky Voice. In fact, Billy and I came out and watched it at amphitheater out here in Beckley. And they had the Odell kid with a sports coat on. Of course, Dad was a garbage man, and whatever needed, you know, we could come up with it. They'd give it to us. And this kid, whatever they wanted, he had a pocket with something in it. And of course, they had an intermission, and my back got to hurt me, and I went and walked off the numbness in my feet and sat on the side of a metal or a rock wall. Finally, here comes Billy with our coats, and he said, "You ready to go?" I said, "Yeah, I've had all this I can stand." It was, the first half was pretty good, it was moving. Second half, there's more love songs in it than Frog Level ever heard. There wasn't that much love in all of Coldwood. I don't know what they were getting at, but it was too long and dragging. So I don't know what happened to it. But I talked to Hickam, and he said, "I didn't like the way they portrayed that Odell kid." I said, and then Linda told me that they were doing reruns or getting it started down in Alabama. And I just come down, but there you go. But she said when they were doing the Beckley thing, the best actor they had for the Odell kid was black. He had more talent than anybody. I said, so? It didn't bother me. Well, nothing I can do about it. He could have been a Mongolian yak herder. You know? So I don't know where that's gotten, but their thinking is to make this into a Broadway musical. So if you see Odell up there, go up and shake his hand. Tell him I'm proud of him. Question? Yes?
Let's see, I'll get somebody else. I lost my track.
Question?
Did Homer really have to go down work in the mines for a while when his dad got hurt?
Homer Hedley Hickam Jr. worked in the mines in the summer doing time study for money. The movie, Mr. Hickam did almost get his eye, maybe did lose his eye, but a cable did break and he likely got killed. That part was true, and the part that Sonny worked in the mines was true. But he didn't have to go in to save the family and
right.
the whole. But you got to be something if you're going to be Homer and doing your journey and fighting off all this, you know. So that's kind of what I figured why they picked Homer. That's why they use Hadley, and they leave your dad home. Homer's Odyssey. Hey, don't know. Yes.
Okay, I heard that when they renamed the book October Sky, that several of you guys got really disappointed with that.
Well, several guys didn't write it, but Hickam did.
I know.
What's that word? Acronym or something? The same letters that spells
Right.
out Rocky
Anagram.
Boys?
Anagram.
That's what I said. Anagram. Just so you're listening. Anagram, the same letters in Rocky Boys spells
October.
October Sky. Hickam was mad as a wet hen because he wanted everything to be Rocky Boys because that's his book. He wanted all the movie Rocky Boys. He wanted all. But it turned out. Guess what Hollywood knew? They had launched Sputnik in October. Who would have thought? Good name for a book, a movie. October Sky. October the 5th, was it? 5th, 7th?
October.
So, and Joe Johnson and Chuck Gordon, this wasn't their first rodeo. They had done Jumanji, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Jurassic Park, Field of Dreams. So when Hickam published, I don't know if I got it here or not, he had a friend in New York as an editor, and she wanted a little filler story, and he looked over, saw a nozzle, and he said, how about some hillbilly boys building rockets in West Virginia? She said, yeah, sure. Well, like, here's something in this Georgia suitcase. If this nose cone is found, please notify Homer Hickam Jr., Box 147, Colbert, West Virginia. No zip code. Did we not have zip codes back then? Guess not. What was the question? What was the answer? Where was I? I'm gonna tell Billy history.
How angry he was about having the name changed from Rocket Boys to October Sky.
Right. How'd you like my answer?
That's what I heard.
All right, we've got 60 seconds, 30 seconds. We've got admission. And we're going to listen to somebody that's smart and organized next. I know. Yes, ma'am?
I just want to tell you there are hundreds of kids living in small towns in America and everywhere in America who see that movie or read that book and know that they can get out of where they are, that they're not stuck there, that there's, you know, a chance for them and they can follow their dreams.
I've just got
an
an email.
inspiration to them.
Believe it or not, I've got an iPhone now. Just broke my own. The other one broke its neck. My son bought me this thing. I got an email from an Air Force buddy I saw in Tucson for an Air Force gathering in February. And he sent this thing. He says, every time, and this was the thing, how do we get to Mars? And he says this little animation of 7 months of, and he says, every time I see this, or something's NASA, I think of you Rocket Boys, of y'all possibly inspiring some kid who will be the future of our future and go where we want to go. You know? I mean, it could well be these two. And by that time you'll be old enough and you could be a commander and he could be your sister. You know him back there? Better get to meet him. So, thank you kindly. We just got started. There's 3 more years. We've used an hour of the 3 years to tell this story. So if it was structured, God help, I don't know how you do it. So I thank you for coming. Go tell people, just have the kids start reading. It's the only thing I know to tell you. Thank you kindly.